Hi, and welcome to our newest installment of our American Made series. Tonight we'll be doing Levi Strauss and Calvin Klein. All right, we're going to jump right into Levi Strauss. Perhaps the name Loeb Strauss means nothing to you, but Loeb actually created a product that became the American classic. Loeb was born in Bavaria in 1829, the son of Hirsch and Rebecca Strauss. Hirsch made his living by peddling dry goods. Life for the Jewish Strauss family was difficult. The Jews were not treated well in Bavaria, and they were often forced to live in an area called the ghetto. Many residents were placed on them, including, let me go back. I didn't bring my glasses, which is making me struggle. Too much rushing. I don't know if I can see those. Let's see.
Sometimes they're not.
No, that made it worse. All right, it was worse than rushing. Many restrictions were placed on them, including having to ask for permission to marry, because the government wanted to control the population of the Jews. They wanted to keep it from spreading beyond the ghetto borders. In 1845, Hirsch died of tuberculosis. Loeb's older half-brothers left Bavaria and traveled to America. The brothers began peddling dry goods on the streets of New York until they were able to open J. Strauss Brother and Company. Loeb arrived in New York with his mother and two sisters in 1847. He worked at his brother's store until he had learned the dry good business. In 1848, gold had been found in California, and Loeb, or Levi as he was now called in America, saw a great opportunity. Most of the men rushing to the west to find gold were leaving their families behind in order to travel quickly and cheaply. They were also traveling light. Levi knew that once they arrived, they would need to buy gear. Along with tools like picks and shovels, the miners would need work clothes and bedding for their camps. Strauss set off on his 6-month voyage to California with the intent of selling dry goods to the men. He believed he could make his fortune by selling pillows, blankets, canvas for tents, and clothing. He did very well and was soon able to expand. Gold fever had caused San Francisco's population to rise from a couple hundred to tens of thousands. Men lived in tents while mining for gold. Clothes wore out quickly because of the heavy labor. Both of these facts made Levi Strauss's business profitable. Levi was acquiring gold without working in the gold fields, since many men paid for the goods with gold nuggets rather than cash. In March of 1853, shortly after becoming a United States citizen, he was able to open a wholesale business near the docks, which he called Levi Strauss. His business continued to expand until soon Levi Strauss was a 4-story complex on Battery Street. With the money Levi was making, he began to invest in real estate. He also became an avid philanthropist. He gave money to many causes, but especially supported the Jewish schools and synagogues. Levi's wholesale business sold everything from picks, axes, lanterns, pots, shirts, and dungarees. He thought he would remain in the wholesale business, but a letter arrived in 1872 that altered the course of his life. The letter was from a customer of Levi's, a tailor from Reno, Nevada. His name was Jacob Davis. He had been purchasing fabric from Levi to make sturdy pants for workers. Davis wrote of a woman who had entered his shop and asked him to make sturdier pants for her husband. She said that her husband's pockets were often ripped off easily. He needed sturdy pockets to hold all of his tools. Davis had been working on attaching leather straps on a horse's blanket when the woman had arrived. Because of that, he immediately knew that brass rivets were the answer, and he developed some to place on the pockets where extra support was needed, creating a pant sturdy enough for mining and any other work the wearer would participate in. While Davis had created the solution, he could not afford to pay the $68 for a patent. He had therefore reached out to Levi to see if he would be willing to become his partner. Levi would pay for the patent in order to enter this new enterprise. Levi agreed to the partnership. They received the patent on May 20th, 1873, Davis moved to San Francisco in order to oversee the manufacturing of the new product. The Levi, Strauss and Company hired seamstresses to sew the new pants, which were called waist overalls. As the demand for the pants grew, the partners knew that they needed a more efficient way to produce their popular product. They purchased a factory and ordered sewing machines from the East to enable them to keep up with the demand. Together they created what were called XX, extra, extra strong. They were onto something big. These pants would be desired by workers and laborers who needed their clothing to last longer and loved these comfortable yet sturdy pants. The partners used Levi's sturdy denim, which he had dyed blue to hide the inevitable stains, and Jacob's rivets to create a sturdy work pants that people would soon refer to as blue jeans. The pursuit to success was not without obstacles. In 1878, the San Francisco plant burned to the ground. It was rebuilt using brick and iron and contained all the latest fire-resistant features available at the time. In 1886, Strauss and Davis added a leather patch to the back of their jeans. The patch was their new logo. It had two horses going in opposite directions pulling a pair of jeans, but the jeans were not splitting. This patch was to show that the pants were sturdy, and since many of the men who had traveled to the West were illiterate, this picture was the perfect way to brand the jeans as durable without having any written words. This patch is still found on Levi, Strauss & Company products. The patent that Strauss and Davis had obtained would keep the competitors from creating riveted jeans for 20 years. But when that patent expired in 1891, other companies rushed to imitate the pants that were now commonly referred to as Levi's. But Levi, Strauss & Company had solidified their hold on the market by turning out quality merchandise at reasonable prices. The expansion of railroads brought railroad workers, farmers, cowboys, and many other workers to the West. It didn't matter what line of work they were in, these men needed sturdy pants that could survive the rugged West. The addition of railroad access also allowed Levi, Strauss & Company to ship their products to other states easily. In the 1890s, the rivets were repositioned on the jeans to keep them from scratching saddles. This is one of the things Levi Strauss did that led to its success. They were able to adapt with the times and the needs. Levi Strauss was a smart businessman. He expanded his company using only their earnings. He also expanded their product line as the needs of those around him changed. The company added jackets, shirts, and other work gear to equip their working customers. Another addition in the 1890s were the 501 jeans. These basic jeans would transcend the generations. As fads changed and new jeans were added to reflect those trends, the 501 remained the classic style. Another major change in 1890, Levi Strauss & Company Incorporated. After that event, Levi passed the running of the company over to his nephews, Jacob, Sigmund, Louis, and Abraham Stern, the sons of his sister Fanny, would now take control of the company. This allowed Levi time to sit on the board of directors of several other companies. He continued to purchase and improve real estate. He also continued to contribute to the Jewish schools and other charities. For 12 years, Levi watched his business grow under his nephew's leadership. Levi Strauss died peacefully in his home on September 26, 1902. He had no sons or daughters of his own, as he had never married. Upon his death, his estate was worth $6 million. His influence and reputation were so great in San Francisco that businesses closed so that owners and workers might all attend Strauss's funeral. Levi's nephews kept the company going strong. They followed Levi's dedication to quality and philanthropy. They would eventually pass it on to their children as well. After the earthquake in 1906, the nephews did just what they knew Levi would do. They rebuilt their building. But while rebuilding took place, they continued to pay their employees. They also also gave loans to smaller businesses that had suffered losses due to the earthquake. When World War I began, Levi's did their part. They provided denim for fatigue uniforms, as well as saddles and tents for the troops. Factory workers, soldiers in training camps, aviators, auto mechanics, and farmers needed Levi's to evolve and create clothing that met their needs. During the Great Depression, Levi Strauss & Company remained in business because of their durability and quality. Depression-era families knew that buying a pair of Levi's that would last was a better financial investment than cheaper clothing that they would have to replace more frequently. Hollywood also helped to keep Levi's popular. In the 1930s, when Western movies were popular, Levi's sales were boosted as Western stars like John Wayne and Gary Cooper walked out onto the screen wearing Levi jeans as they portrayed strong cowboys. During this time, Levi's brother had another boost to revenue. Dude ranches became popular, and the urbanites wanted to flee to the breadlines and bloom. They would take vacations at dude ranches to get genuine cowboy experiences and enjoy the fresh air. You can guess what these urban cowboys donned: Levi jeans. In 1936, Levi Strauss & Company added a red Levi tab to the right back pocket of their jeans, along with a double stitch pattern that looked like bat wings. These two features were added in order to ward off would-be copycats. As new technology and machinery were created, Levi updated their plants. They also added plants outside the U.S. as their products became in demand overseas. Placing factories in different countries allowed Levi's to be closer to their customers and to lower shipping and tariff costs. During World War II, as men went off to fight and women went to work in the factories, Levi's created overalls and pants for female factory workers, the Rosie the Riveters. The brass rivets were replaced with bar tacks as metal needed to be conserved. This change would remain because the bar tacks did not scratch furniture. American soldiers overseas helped create a demand for Levi's as they were seen wearing jeans and jean jackets in Europe and Asia. When the war ended, the country saw an economic boom. Returning soldiers were beginning families, buying homes, and people were spending again. Levi's jeans were not just worn for work anymore. They began to emerge as a comfortable fashion for leisure times as well. In the 1950s, Hollywood again impacted the sale of Levi's as they produced films like The Wild One, which starred Marlon Brando wearing none other than Levi jeans. Also on the big screen was Rebel Without a Cause, with its star James Dean also donning Levi's. These two films sparked an interest in Levi's with a new generation. Gone was the image of the American worker, and in its place rose a symbol of defiance and youthful angst. In 1956, Elvis Presley starred in a film, Jailhouse Rock. Featured in the movie was an experiment from Levi's, black denim. Originally named Levi's Elvis Presley jeans, they quickly became a must-have item among the youth of the time. Ironically, Elvis said he didn't dislike jeans, but that moment in screen still holds significance in fashion and culture. Schools at the time, for the most part, banned the wearing of jeans, which officials say were symbols of delinquency. This stand by authority figures only made the teens want to wear them even more. This diversity of opinions had Levi's cautiously advertising its product in ways that didn't alienate either generation. Levi's became even more interwoven into American culture in the 1960s and 70s as events like the Civil Rights Movement, the Feminist Movement, and anti-war sentiment had the nation's youth adding embroidery and patches to their denim clothing as a way to express themselves. Bell-bottom jeans were created for this generation, and they flew off the shelves. Both gender and class lines blurred, with youth everywhere. This too was evident in the embellishments they added to their Levi's. Symbols like the peace sign and the word love were seen on bell-bottom pockets and denim jackets. During this time, Levi's for Gals became a new line for the company. They also added action slacks and pre-washed fabrics. New competitors arose, like Lee and Wrangler, as well as designer jeans. Levi's responded with a variety of fits, washes, and price points. The goal was to have something that everyone could fit and that everyone could afford, whatever their lifestyle was. In the 1980s, the music industry promoted Levi's. Singers were seen wearing the brand in music videos, and Bruce Springsteen donned Levi's for his Born in the USA album cover, which was a shot of his Levi-covered backside. Levi, Strauss & Company bought out the Britannia and Marionette companies in the 80s. These purchases gave them a non-denim line of items. The company's leadership and plant locations changed throughout time. The four nephews passed, and the company was led by the in-laws, the Haas family. When the company went public in 1971, it was operating in 50 countries. In 1985, the Haas family staged a leverage buyout that returned the company to private ownership. Levi's was forced to outsource manufacturing to other countries in order to lower the cost and continue to compete. Eventually, Levi's was forced to close its American plants. In order to compete with new designer jeans and other companies, they had to lower their labor costs. They originally closed 60 plants, then in 2004, the last two USA plants were closed. The company that had proudly been known as America's company took a lot of flack for the closings that left many Americans unemployed. While Levi Strauss & Company held off and really did not want to close the American plants, they knew it had to be done for their company to survive. In 1986, Levi Strauss & Company introduced a new line of casual pants called Dockers. This line of clothing appealed to young businessmen who donned the khaki pants to go with a shirt and jacket. This trend was one of the things that evoked an acceptance of casual wear at work. In the 90s, Levi Strauss faced a new challenge. Labor practice activists were exposing sweatshops and human rights violations. Companies of all types were attacking Levi Strauss & Company, were being attacked, sorry. Levi Strauss & Company was known for its fair treatment of workers. They adopted a global sourcing and operating guideline policy to ensure the companies they were outsourcing abided by the standards Levi Strauss & Company desired. One of the first companies to address labor standards, workers' rights, and environmental standards, which required all of their suppliers to follow labor practices. Fun fact. In 1998, a pair of jeans, what became known as the Nevada jeans, was discovered in the bottom of a mine shaft. The stitching, the unique knife pocket on the rear outer left leg, the bow-shaped stitching on the back and the buttons to attach suspenders dated it to be from 1879. The finder listed them on eBay in 2001, and it is said that there were quite a number of bidders. Rumors claim that one of the bidders was Ralph Lauren. The winning bid on these pants that originally sold for 99 cents was $46,532, and that came from Levi Strauss. The company wanted to add them to their archives.
Only by themselves.
Yeah. The company celebrated the return of the jeans by creating the reproduction of the Nevada pair, complete with distressing to make them look like the pair found in the mine.
That's awesome.
As we moved into the 21st century, Levi's continued to evolve. They created products that were specifically made to fit the needs of individual cultures. They added loose-fitting jeans and stretched denim to their product lines. They also collaborated with celebrities and designers to make limited edition clothing in an effort to reach the youth of the time. Despite new designs, new marketing strategies and ad campaigns, and other efforts to stay current, in 2011, sales had stagnated. The company hired Chip Bergh as CEO. He was credited with turning the company around as he made changes like modernizing the e-commerce division and expanding overseas markets. In March of 2019, Levi Strauss again went public, and its IPO raised more than $620 million. Levi Strauss, a Bavarian immigrant, brought the world a simple product that changed the fashion world for all times. Today, we couldn't even imagine existing without him. Thanks to Levi Strauss and Jacob Davis, we don't have to.
Before the 70s, when people thought about blue jeans, they thought about sturdy work pants or casual clothes to wear around the house. Calvin Klein changed this. Calvin Richard Klein was born in 1942 in the Bronx. He was the son of Flora and Leo Klein, who immigrated from Austria-Hungary. Klein attended public school as a child and earned a diploma from the High School of Art and Design in Manhattan. After graduation, he attended New York's Fashion Institute of Technology and earned a degree. Klein married for the first time in 1964 before fame called. He married Jane Center, a textile designer. Even though he and Jane went to the same high school and grew up next door to each other, they didn't really meet or begin dating until college. They had one daughter, Marcy. Marcy Klein would grow up to become a TV producer known for her work on Saturday Night Live and 30 Rock. The couple divorced, Jane and Calvin divorced in 1974. At the age of 26, he launched his first company in 1968 with a childhood friend, Mary Schwartz. Schwartz was considered purchasing a grocery store, so Klein told him about his plan to design medium-priced clothes with a clean look. He just needed some seed money. Schwartz said, "You got it," invested his $10,000 in Klein, and became Klein's business manager. During their 35-year partnership, Klein and Schwartz made every major decision together. Schwartz handled the business side of things while Klein handled the creative side. So I'm sure he thinks that was probably a pretty good move that he did not buy that supermarket in Harlem, which was his original plan. Klein founded Calvin Klein Limited and started his business out of a room he rented at the York Hotel. The first Calvin Klein collection was a line of youthful, understated coats and dresses. Fate stepped in when a merchandise manager from the New York store, Bonwit Teller, got off the elevator on the wrong floor and accidentally stumbled into Klein's workspace. The manager placed an order for $50,000. They had projected the company to make $50,000 for the whole year. Just 1 year later, Klein's designs appeared on the cover of American Vogue. Klein spent his evenings partying with the elite at Studio 54. Klein is a man of extremes, and he once said, "I'm either extremely excited or very upset about something." He also said, "Doing everything possible is synonymous with survival." He caught the attention of and became a protege of Baron de Gunsberg, a French-born American banker, fashion editor, and socialite who became a leading figure in U.S. fashion publishing. Gunsberg helped to introduce Klein to the New York elite fashion scene, and by 1971, Klein had added sportswear, blazers, and lingerie to his women's collection. After his first major show at New York's Fashion Week, he was called the new Yves Saint Laurent. The Calvin Klein look meant practical yet fashionable designs. Klein's philosophy was not to make sexy clothes, but rather to make people look sexy in their clothes. And what's more practical than a pair of jeans? In 1974, he debuted his game-changing jeans. The tight-fitting signature jeans flew off the shelves and changed how the world viewed denim. Prior to Calvin Klein, jeans were viewed as utilitarian wear and casual pants to wear at home. But Klein revolutionized the concept of jeans by changing how they fit. Instead of designing for basic practicality, he designed them specifically to be tight, suggestive, and flattering. He pulled the back seam up higher to give the rear a more lifted and defined shape. At the company, the motto became, "The tighter they are, the better they sell." He was one of the first designers to put denim on the runway. His name on the back pocket of the jeans became a status symbol coveted by fashionable people. This move kicked off the designer jean craze and carried over into the 80s, proving the customers were willing to pay a premium for a luxury label on their jeans, which at that time was around $50 in 1974. Most importantly, Klein understood that sex and controversy sell, and his advertising campaigns encompassed both. One of his early campaigns featured model Patty Hansen arched on her knees and her hands on a Times Square billboard to highlight the back pocket logo. Of course, the brand also is responsible for possibly the most famous jeans commercial of all time, starring Brooke Shields, who was then 15 in 1980. And here's hoping this works.
You want to know what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing.
Calvin Klein jeans.
The public outrage was immediate, and the ad was banned by CBS and ABC networks. Feminist groups attacked, parental groups attacked, but no one can argue with the results. 200,000 pairs of jeans sold in a single week following the campaign launch and solidified Calvin Klein as a household name. Brooke starred in a series of similar commercials directed by famed photographer Richard Avedon in his first commercial foray that used wordplay, minimalism, and provocation. Shields would deliver a philosophical monologue where she mused about historical figures and the like before dropping a tagline. So here is another one.
The secret of life lies hidden in your genetic code. Genes are fundamental in determining the characteristics of an individual and passing on these characteristics to the succeeding generations. Occasionally, certain conditions produce a spectrum of changes, which will bring about the process of evolution. This may occur in one or more of the following ways. Firstly, by selective mating, in which a single gene type proves superior in transmitting its genes to future generations. Secondly, by gene drift, in which certain genes may fade away while other genes persist. And finally, by natural selection, which filters out those genes better equipped than others to endure in the environment. This may result in the origin of an entirely new species, which brings us to Calvins and the survival of the fittest.
Calvin Klein jeans.
He said it all.
Does anybody remember that?
No.
I don't remember that. I remember the first one, but not now.
At the time the ads were filmed, Brooke said she never realized that the lines could be interpreted as any kind of double entendre because she was 15. The commercial dropped while Shields was out of the country. She returned to a media maelstrom. People berated her mother and yelled at Brooke on the streets. For her part, Brooke had always felt she was pretty sequestered by her mother, and she couldn't understand why people were outraged enough to ban the commercials. As an adult, she mused on the irony that people made accusations that she knew exactly what she was doing and how suggestive she was being, while also wanting to talk about how she was the most famous virgin in the world. Calvin Klein had to defend himself as public pressure intensified. He said the artistic intent of the ads was to be lighthearted and avant-garde rather than scandalous. Brooke Shields interviewed Calvin Klein for a satellite radio show many years later. He told her she changed the course of his career. She said he did hers as well. We were both in the right place at the right time, Brooke said. Klein did not have the designer jeans market to himself for very long. While his competition never really was companies like Levi's, which we'll hear about in a minute, other designers saw the opportunity and jumped on the jeans bandwagon. His strongest and earliest competition came from Gloria Vanderbilt. Her design put her signature on the back pocket and the swan logo on the coin pocket. They were specifically made to hug a woman's curves. Vanderbilt was beating Klein by sheer volume. By 1979, Vanderbilt was the #1 selling designer jeans brand in America, with Calvin Klein a close second. But as you can see from her picture, she did not embrace the minimalist look that Calvin Klein was known for. But the competition didn't stop there. Founded in 1978 by brothers Joe, Avi, and Ralph Nakash, Jordache became an instant and aggressive rival. Known for a tight fit and distinctive horse head logo on the back pocket, Jordache marketed themselves with an upbeat television ad campaign and a catchy jingle about the Jordache look. With a slightly more accessible price point than Klein, they successfully cornered the youth markets. And so this is another commercial, but if you watch this commercial, if anybody watched Melrose Place, one of the guys from Melrose Place is in this commercial. I don't remember which one. Yeah, this is just from 1980. A wave of European-sounding brands backed by New York manufacturers came next, like Sasson and Sergio Valente, which was a name made up by an American sportswear executive to sound Italian. There was no Sergio Valente. In the end, Calvin Klein ultimately came out on top by securing the most enduring legacy and becoming part of the cultural zeitgeist. Remember that scene from Back to the Future where Leah Thompson's character thinks Marty McFly's name is Calvin because that's what his underwear says? Well, by the way, if you Google, because I did trying to find a picture of his parents for earlier in the talk, if you Google Calvin Klein's parents, you'll get this picture. They don't really have a picture of his parents online. Klein continued to use sex ingeniously in his advertising campaigns through the upcoming decades, pairing his fashions with boundary-pushing advertising campaigns, famously boosting not only the company's bottom line, but also the careers of future stars like a young Kate Moss and Mark Wahlberg, but more on that later. In 1986, Klein married his design assistant, Kelly Rector, while on a routine buying trip in Italy. Although the decision to wed was spontaneous, they had been working closely together and dating for years. Kelly had joined the company in 1981. Perhaps you can say the romance of Rome got to them, but the wedding itself was very low-key. The bride wore a suit instead of a designer dress. They got married at Rome City Hall on a Friday morning and went right back to work hunting for fabrics and attending a business meetings the very next day. While the wedding may have lacked grandeur, this relationship was very important to the company. Kelly was Klein's muse and the creative force behind some of the company's key moments in the late 80s and 90s. Kelly helped to shape the company's aesthetic and inspired some lucrative ideas. For example, Kelly once observed, "There's something very sexy about wearing your boyfriend's underwear." This led Calvin Klein's adaptation of the classic men's brief for women. It became an instant success with over $70 million in sales in 1984 alone. It created a completely new multi-million-dollar category for the brand. Before style icons like Carolyn Bessette Kennedy popularized the clean, minimal look of the 90s, Kelly had rejected the loud and sequin glamour of the 80s in favor of slip dresses, black heels, and white t-shirts tucked into sharp pants. She adopted the less is more philosophy and prioritized how real women lived in clothes. This became the blueprint for the brand's runway collections. Kelly also made her mark on the company's visual direction, and Calvin trusted her implicitly in this respect. He relied on Kelly to help cast models for runway shows and determine how clothing was styled and photographed. Kelly embodied the natural beauty that made the company a powerhouse when it came to minimalism. When they married, Calvin gave Kelly a diamond wedding band that had originally belonged to the Duchess of Windsor. Inscribed inside the band was one word: eternity. This became the inspiration for the concept and name of the 1988 Eternity perfume campaign. Calvin launched this advertising with wholesome imagery to intentionally contrast the brand's controversial ads. The fragrance designed for women was supposed to celebrate romance, marriage, and family. Eternity became such an outstanding success that the company quickly released Eternity for Men the following year. In 1994, Klein revolutionized the fragrance industry by launching the first ever unisex fragrance, CK1. It was a stunning success. In 1996, Calvin and Kelly officially separated. Their friends said the end of the marriage came from a gradual, quiet drifting apart rather than an explosive conflict. Their personal goals had diverged, with Kelly wanting to have children and Calvin not interested in having more kids beyond Marcy. Kelly would go on to welcome a son via surrogate in 2007. The pressure of managing a global empire and the blurred lines between their business and personal relationships was another factor. In the end, they realized that they were better off as friends and creative collaborators than as romantic partners. They quietly finalized their divorce in 2006, so they took their own sweet time, that was 10 years, which is regarded as one of the most amicable divorces in fashion history. Kelly remained a trusted confidant and creative sounding board for Calvin, and neither of them ever spoke negatively about the other. Kelly went on to become a successful photographer in her own right. So the far picture there, that's like them pretty much today. No. In addition to jeans and fragrance, Calvin Klein also broke ground with underwear. And as you can see from this image, there was a lot of improvement to be made. I'm not sure what's going on in that lower picture there. But he turned a basic commodity into a fashion statement and got people talking with his groundbreaking advertising in 1982. Prior to 1982, men's underwear advertising looked like this. It was practical, using either illustration-style packaging or models posing for catalog pages. The one cracks me up there, like those three guys just standing around in their underwear chatting with each other. I'm sure that happens every day. Commercials were anything but sexy. Remember the Fruit of the Loom guys?
Oh, yeah.
Men's underwear was a necessity, usually purchased by a mom or a wife in packs of 3. Calvin Klein changed all that with his Tom Hitnouse campaign. Hitnouse was a champion pole vaulter who qualified for the 1980 U.S. Olympic team, but he did not get the chance to compete because of the country's boycott of the Moscow Olympics. While he was training for the Olympics, a mutual friend introduced Hitnouse to fashion photographer Bruce Weber, who was working with Calvin Klein at the time, to launch a new men's underwear line. Klein wanted a model who looked naturally athletic rather than the standard models, and he picked Hitnouse for the role. Weber photographed him on the Greek island of Santorini, leaning against a whitewashed brick wall, wearing nothing but a pair of Calvin Klein briefs. The image was blown up into a massive block-long billboard in Times Square. This was the first time a mainstream fashion brand overtly objectified and sexualized the male body in a public advertising space. The imagery was so unique for its time that when posters for the campaign were placed inside glass bus shelters around New York, people smashed the glass to steal them. All 25 of the posters disappeared on the very first night they were displayed, stolen by members of the public. In 1988, Calvin was facing serious personal problems. He was battling addiction, vodka and Valium being his vices of choice. So he checked himself into a rehab in Minnesota for 31 days. When he returned, he was facing bankruptcy, partly due to the strain of rapid growth. Many in the fashion industry said he burned too brightly too quickly and would never recover. A friend he met in the Studio 54 days, music mogul David Geffen, gave him a loan to keep him going, along with some advice. He told Klein to stop with the manufacturing and get on with what he did best, designing and marketing. Exactly a decade after the Tom Hitnouse campaign in 1992, the company was facing serious financial problems again and struggling to overcome past financial mismanagement of the late 80s. The company had faltered when Klein stepped away to address his personal issues, and everything was catching up to them in 1992. Once again, Geffen supplied a cash infusion, and Calvin Klein took Geffen's advice and did what he did best. He stepped away from manufacturing and set about reinventing the brand. And then in 1993, 1 year later, Klein was named America's Best Designer. During this time as the company's head of menswear from 1990 to 95, John Barbados pioneered a new hybrid type of men's underwear called boxer briefs. Klein's art director, Fabian Barron, and Klein's executive assistant, Carolyn Bissett, in her pre-JFK Jr. days, brought photos of an unknown British model to Calvin. And so you can see how she's dressed here, just a little sidebar. Like, she very much embraced the Calvin Klein minimalist style.
name of Klein?
Yes.
Yes.
She resigned from Calvin Klein after she married JFK Jr. But back to that unknown British model, the brand paired up the 17-year-old model, whose name was Kate Moss, and a hip-hop star named Mark Wahlberg, who was then famous. He was then famous for fronting the group Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, and people knew his brother more than him because his brother was one of the new kids on the block. This black and white campaign featured Wahlberg in jeans saggy enough to display the Calvin Klein waistband of his underwear, often with a topless Moss straddling him or posing alongside him. Wahlberg tended to wear his pants low on stage, but these ads celebrated the look and single-handedly launched the generational trend of sagging jeans. So we have Marky Mark for that. For the specific purpose of showing off the designer underwear logo underneath the jeans. Wahlberg was catapulted into overnight heartthrob status and used the momentum to transition away from music and launch a very successful acting career, so no one can ever hear Good Vibrations live again. The Boxer Brief campaign became a huge hit, or the Boxer Brief itself became a huge hit, at least in part because of the Wahlberg-Moss campaign. Kate Moss became a global superstar. At the time, the industry was dominated by statuesque curving supermodels like Cindy Crawford and Naomi Campbell. Moss was very different. She had an elfin, vulnerable look about her, and by featuring her lean and unpolished look in ad campaigns, Klein and Moss accidentally kicked off the era of heroin chic. And Moss was heavily criticized for her very thin figure. Moss later revealed that the campaign with Wahlberg caused her crippling anxiety prior to the shoot because she felt immense pressure and vulnerability. She said the creative team played on her youth and innocence. Klein admitted that he had a tough time dealing with Kate in the beginning because her personal struggles led into her attitude on set, but he recognized her unique magnetism. But can you imagine being 17 years old and being asked to do that? So I think she had a point. In 1993, he didn't mind her personal life bleeding into her work. He knew Moss was dating an up-and-coming photographer named Mario Sorrenti, who was completely taken by Kate. Klein sent the couple alone to the British Virgin Islands with a camera and told them to just document the vacation. Then he used the raw, intimate photos to create one of the most famous fragrance ads in history. Those images became the iconic Obsession campaign, and this is just one of those images. Unfortunately for Sorrenti, Moss said all the non-stop photography during that vacation factored heavily into their real-life breakup. Moss wound up becoming one of Klein's muses, and he credited her with single-handedly saving the company from bankruptcy. He became loyal to her, and when she faced a massive media scandal in 2005, Calvin stood by her. When photographs appeared to show her using cocaine with her musician boyfriend, she lost several modeling contracts, including those with fashion houses such as Burberry and Chanel. But Calvin Klein refused to sever ties with her. In fact, he gave her a new contract. Kate Moss felt like she was a scapegoat because drug use was so prevalent in the fashion industry, but she issued an apology to fans she may have disappointed anyway. With Calvin Klein in her corner, Moss was able to stage a remarkable comeback after many had said her career was damaged irreparably. As for Klein's personal life, after his divorce from Kelly, he decided to take a different approach. Once the divorce was final in 2010, Klein announced publicly that he was bisexual and started a 2-year relationship with Nicholas Gruber, a 20-year-old former gay porn star. The relationship was due to Gruber's escalating struggles with substance abuse and Klein's severe trust issues. He once hired a former detective to administer a polygraph test to Gruber to determine his fidelity. Although Gruber passed the test, the incident damaged their relationship. The 48-year age difference certainly didn't help matters either. Even though the breakup was a bit messy, Klein supported Gruber in his effort to get sober and even paid for Gruber's rehab stint. Klein has been in a relationship with model Kevin Baker since 2016. The couple keeps a low profile and their private life private. Again, there is a drastic age difference. This time it's only 46 years. with Baker being 37 and Klein 83. Yet it seems to be working for them. Later in the 90s, Klein not only got out of financial peril, but he increased the company's profitability through the success of underwear and fragrance lines, as well as the CK sportswear line. By the early 2000s, the company had expanded into several various lines of clothing, from lingerie to coats, and had expanded into accessories and home goods. In 2003, Klein sold his company to Phillips Van Heusen for approximately $400 million in cash and $30 million in stock, along with licensing rights and royalties over the following 15 years. Klein had decided to sell to be able to retire from the demanding day-to-day operations of running a global company. He wanted to focus on his personal life. The sale marked the end of his direct operational control and into an advisory role as creative director consultant. He stayed in that role until 2006. Although he sold in hopes of stepping back, the sale was also strategic. Selling to PVH allowed the brand to reach new heights and secure continued growth and expansion into foreign markets. Today, the company generates $9 billion in global retail sales every year. Thereby, he secured his legacy, which was one of the reasons he wanted to sell. In 2014, the brand seamlessly transitioned to social media by launching the #MyCalvins initiative. This effort invited celebrities, influencers, and everyday consumers to photograph themselves in their underwear and share it on Instagram, because who wouldn't want to do that? Celebrities like Justin Bieber and Kendall Jenner participated, and the viral campaign became an interactive experience for consumers. Calvin Klein transformed his brand from a passing denim trend into a permanent global luxury empire.